Welcome to my YouTube channel, where history's most captivating stories come to life. The story of the American Revolution begins in the 18th century, when the 13 British colonies thrived on the eastern seaboard of North America. These colonies were bustling with trade, agriculture, and diverse cultures, but were increasingly chafing under British rule. King George III and the British Parliament imposed taxes and laws without colonial representation, leading to widespread discontent. Imagine a colonial town alive with the sounds of haggling merchants, horse-drawn carriages, and community gatherings. Over this vibrant life loomed the shadow of British soldiers, their presence a constant reminder of control. These mounting tensions set the stage for one of history's most transformative revolutions. The seeds of revolution were sown through unjust taxation and brutal responses to colonial protests. The Stamp Act of 1765 taxes printed materials, angering many colonists. Protests escalated into violent confrontations like the Boston Massacre in 1770, where British soldiers fired on unarmed civilians. The most dramatic act of defiance came in 1773 with the Boston Tea Party. A group of patriots, disguised as Native Americans, boarded British ships and dumped tea into the harbor to protest the Tea Act. This act of rebellion shocked Britain and united the colonies. The message was clear: the colonies would not bow to tyranny. In September 1774, representatives from 12 of the 13 colonies gathered in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. It was a historic moment where leaders debated how to respond to British aggression. Inside a wooden hall, voices rose in impassioned arguments about resistance and reconciliation. The delegates, including future revolutionaries like George Washington and John Adams, united around a common cause. They drafted a letter to King George III demanding their rights and agreed to boycott British goods. Although they still hoped for peace, this meeting marked the beginning of organized colonial resistance. The war's first shots were fired on April 19, 1775, at Lexington and Concord. British troops marched to seize colonial weapons, but they were met by Minutemen, local militia ready at a moment's notice. In Lexington, a small group of colonists faced British soldiers. A mysterious shot rang out, sparking chaos. At Concord, the colonists launched a counterattack, forcing the British to retreat. These early battles, known as the Shot Heard round the world, marked the official start of the American Revolution. It was a struggle of farmers and tradesmen against the mightiest military force of the time. By 1776, the colonies realized reconciliation was impossible. A committee led by Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence, asserting the colonies' right to freedom. On July 4th, the Continental Congress adopted this bold document in Philadelphia's Independence Hall. Jefferson presented it to an assembly of leaders who debated and signed it, knowing this act branded them as traitors to Britain. The Declaration proclaimed unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, inspiring not just Americans but freedom movements worldwide. The Revolution tested the resilience of the Continental Army. In the winter of 1777 to 78, soldiers faced brutal conditions at Valley Forge. They lacked food, clothing, and shelter. Disease was rampant, and morale was low. Yet under George Washington's leadership, they endured. With training from European officers like Baron von Steuben, they transformed into a disciplined fighting force. Valley Forge became a symbol of perseverance, proving the colonists' determination to fight for freedom, no matter the cost. The tide turned with key victories and alliances. In 1777, the Americans triumphed at the Battle of Saratoga, convincing France to join the war. French ships, troops, and resources provided critical support to the colonial cause. This alliance gave the colonists a chance to challenge Britain on land and sea. Together, they orchestrated victories that weakened British control, proving the revolution was no longer a colonial rebellion, but an international struggle for freedom. The war culminated in 1781 at Yorktown, Virginia. George Washington's army, with French allies, surrounded British General Cornwallis. After a grueling siege, Cornwallis surrendered. This victory marked the war's end, The combined forces of American determination and international support proved too much for Britain. Celebrations erupted as the colonies took their final step toward independence. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. American, British, and French representatives gathered to formalize the colony's independence. This agreement granted the United States its sovereignty and set its borders. After years of struggle, the dream of self-governance became a reality, and the world witnessed the birth of a new nation. The American Revolution wasn't just a war, but the foundation of a new experiment in democracy. It inspired countless others to fight for freedom and equality. As the United States began its journey, the ideals of liberty and independence spread across the globe, proving that people could shape their destinies. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my new YouTube channel for more captivating stories from history.